well-wished, I guess, I don't know.
It's a discussion that we need to have about what to do with death row. And as you know, our previous governor wanted to have actually they're rebuilding the whole death row in Margin at San Quentin, and that's a real problem. One of the things with death row, forgot it. I'll come back to me. Don? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. And then Don. Sorry.
Maybe a little broader issue, but on accountability in particular regard to, let's say, redevelopment and San Bruno's situation, when you have had illegal utilizations of funds for their non-specified purpose in redevelopment, how are these people being held accountable? Same thing for PG&E, where any decision maker has a responsibility to make a decision under reasonable standard, and they aren't.
It's a broader question, and you're absolutely right, and I can answer this. In the redevelopment issue, the challenge that goes on to there is the definition of blight is one of the issues. How do you define what blight is? It has some broad definitions, but it's not as specific. And so these are legal challenges that sometimes have to go through. That's one issue. And the state frankly doesn't have the resources to sue every one of these agencies for that determination. And also the other part is that audits are found and they're required to give the money back and pay for it. But is that, if you have to do that to all of these agencies, it's a burden and it's a problem that the state doesn't have. In terms of PG&E, you're absolutely right, and they have to be held accountable for this, and they will be. As you know, last week, or earlier this week, it was day before yesterday, Thursday, the PG&E said that they are doubling the amount of money that they are setting aside for the San Bruno. I think it's up to $780 million at this point. And that will be through to civil litigation, and I think also criminal prosecution. Next week, the CPUC is going to establish a rulemaking process starting. I mean, we're holding their feet to the fire, and it's working. They are going to have rulemaking to develop rules that can affect future changes in pipe transmission line management, assessment, review, and analysis. And also, they've admitted, because PG&E hasn't been fined in, I think, 15 years for anything, and they violate all the time. And when they violate the rules, the CPUC has had the philosophy that they don't punish, they don't sanction, they don't fine, because they want to encourage PG&E to come forward with their violations so that they can be corrected. And they feel if they don't do that, and if they fine them, then they won't come forward and they'll hide a lot of the things that are there. Well, I mean, the head of the CPUC, the director told me that hasn't worked, obviously. So that they have to do. And to me, it's a culture issue with PG&E and with the utility. You have the head of PG&E, the CEO, Peter Darby. He was a CFO, financial officer for Pacifica at another company. And then before that, he worked for Morgan Stanley. He's a financial man. His priority is the bottom line. And you look at other utilities in California, Southern California Gas, a very good, strong company that does the testing in the pipes. They do it the right way. The PIG, which is an expensive mechanism to crawl through a pipe to test, they've done almost all of their pipes in Southern California. PG&E's only done 20%. And they have a lot of reasons why they can't do the rest, but they're not sustainable, those reasons. But here, the fellow that is the CEO of Southern California Gas, he's an engineer. He knows the subject. He knows the field. And then you have the head, the president of the California Public Utilities Commission, who comes from the utility. He used to work for utility. So it's kind of backwards in how we're doing things. So they will be, and as you know, our district attorney, Steve Wagstaff, is looking at potential criminal prosecution for PG&E. So there will be a price to pay. There will be a high price, and it's well deserved. So the thing.
Just a quick comment on that. My brother used to work as a manager for PG&E. He can tell you all kinds of stories.
Good.
Lack of concern about what equipment, aging equipment, that they just would blithely refuse to actually, a question I had has to do with realignment. The tax extension, does that require, is that a 2/3 required for the vote?
Go to the
or is
people?
it- or is it
No,
simple
simple majority.
50%? Okay. And then the last part of that is, as part of realignment, as I understand it, is sending prisoners from the state back to the county. If the tax doesn't pass, do
We're still gonna get Senate President?
Yeah,
Yeah, in fact, I have a bill that I introduced just for yesterday on behalf of San Mateo County it's a spot bill at this point because we're trying to determine how we can get money that has not been spent from AB 900 money and how to free up that billion or so dollars that's the city there. But the realignment, my guess is that in talking with in working with the governor and trying to do this as well as redevelopment and realignment is nothing will go forward unless the money's there. So we can't do it in a way, you can't just, that wouldn't be fair, obviously, and wouldn't work. So we need that to continue. And the same with redevelopment. What we want to do is get agreements from the Redevelopment Association and the redevelopment, the cities, to tweak it in a way that then there can be an agreement made by everyone so that we can get the economic development where it works, where it's necessary, and Pacifica is a good example. There's a lot of benefit that can happen here. And some of the other cities that do it right, and so that has to happen. Yes,
I have a question on the revenue side. For over 30 years, we've been living with Proposition 13, and it seems to me there's a basic unfairness there, where you've got identical houses next door to one another, and one person may be paying 5 times the property tax. I mean, that seems an obvious thing to try to go after to make a more fair and equitable revenue.
And you're right. It is inequitable in that sense. It's also been a problem with some commercial properties that change hands, but from the assessor standpoint, it hasn't changed hands because of the legality of that, and so those properties have been under assessed for years and not changed. Some say that wasn't the purpose of Prop 13 to include those, and it did. So the problem today is the political reality. No one's going to touch it. You can kind of dance with it around the edges, but I don't see an effort moving forward to make major changes. And just to take another example, there are other revenue enhancements, taxes, however you want to call it, that the governor knows. I mean, here we've talked before last year about the oil tax to when you take oil out of the ground. California is the only state that does not charge a tax for that natural resource that comes out of it. It could be a fair tax. It wouldn't add to the cost of oil. The oil price of oil is set by world market, not by what California charges.